It's a sports car faster than any car you own, while somehow weighing more than any car you own, and the company's ran by an insane billionaire who has more money than you'll ever own. So let's get into what exactly a Cybertruck is, and why it's turning so many heads with its unique design. So before we get into what exactly makes this car so ugly, let's start with first, what is a Cybertruck? Even if you think you already know, there's a few features about this vehicle that make it more unique than it already looks. To put it simply, the Cybertruck is a new pickup truck by the car company Tesla. In 2019, this thing came out in fire and flames, literally, and most people thought it was a joke. Most people thought this thing would never see the light of day, and here we are. Over $100 million in revenue is being made every single week by the Cybertruck alone for Tesla. And production only just started. You're gonna see one on the road soon if you haven't already. More and more of these are being made every day. So besides its looks, I boiled this down to 5 main features that make this truck unlike any other vehicle out there. This should hopefully give you a pretty good understanding of what exactly a Cybertruck is. For one, it's bulletproof. Enough said. 2, it's electric! Being a fully electric car used to be a pretty big deal, but nowadays it seems like every single car that's announced is fully electric, so it doesn't matter that much anymore. But to give you a recap, there's no gas that powers this giant truck. You just plug it in at night like you do with your phone, you wake up with a full charge. Okay, so the third unique feature, speed. This thing is a sports car. It can go from 0 to 60 in 2.6 seconds, and that's pretty insane. Self-driving. I feel like a lot of people get so caught up in the fact that Teslas are electric cars that they forget that they can actually drive themselves. I've been in a few different Teslas with this feature and it's pretty cool. The Cybertruck does not currently have self-driving as of the recording of this video, but it will soon. And now the last main feature before we get into why this car is so ugly is the fact that it is a pickup truck. The bed of the Cybertruck is 6 feet long, and to give you a comparison, the bed of an F-150 ranges from 5.5 to 8 feet, so this is right in the middle. You can off-road in the Cybertruck, and it's actually pretty capable because it has instant torque from the electric motors. It has 7,435 pounds of torque, whereas an F-150 has 410. I have no idea what that means, but it sounds like the Cybertruck has a lot more. And all the Cybertruck models have 11,000 pounds of towing capacity. It's got off-road wheels, it can go in the water, it's pretty cool. All that being said, you can still definitely get stuck in the mud, just like any other car. So now that we've established why this car is so different, besides how it looks, let's dive into what exactly makes this car look so strange. And if you like design stuff like this, make sure you hit the subscribe button because I post a video just like this every single week. So truly the foundational reason of why this car looks so ridiculous, and what we really need to establish before continuing in this video, is that there was clearly a need to be different. If Tesla wanted to compete in the pickup truck market, which is highly competitive and monopolized by the F-150, they needed to do something drastically different, and I think we can all agree that this is drastically different. Even from the branding, the Cybertruck was a huge change for Tesla alone. You can see here the Cybertruck logo compared with the typical Tesla font that they use for their other cars. Right from the start, Tesla wanted this thing to be different. And the reason behind that is pretty simple. Every other pickup truck for the last century, for over 100 years, has looked pretty much exactly the same. So the only way to break into this competitive market was to take a big risk. Tesla took it and they made something that has never been seen before. However, this car is a little bit reminiscent of another car that we have seen before, which is the DeLorean. It's another kind of sci-fi looking car from the movies Back to the Future, and it was also made of, you guessed it, stainless steel. So that brings me to really one of the big underlying underlying reasons of why the Cybertruck looks the way it does. And that's because it uses stainless steel that's not on your fridge, and it's not even the same that was on the DeLorean. It's actually the same stainless steel that's used on the SpaceX rocket ship Starship, which is another one of Elon Musk's projects. This material can't be bent and shaped the way a typical car like aluminum can be, so it doesn't have that like ergonomic waves and things like you see on a normal car. Elon actually said that it broke the stamping press. So this really limited the look of the truck right from the start, because if they wanted to use this type of steel, there really wasn't much they could do with it, because it had to be cut and welded in ways that a normal car just isn't manufactured. So you're probably wondering, well, why would they use this steel then? What's the point? And the point is pretty simple. It's that they wanted this truck to be the strongest trucks. Trucks are supposed to be strong, and this is the most bulletproof, take whatever you can throw at it, sledgehammer proof truck you can buy on the market. And they also just happen to have spaceship quality steel hanging around to use. So they went with this steel, and as a result it had to be shaped to be a triangle, which is actually the strongest shape, which you can kind of see in truss bridges around the world. So when you look at all of this on paper, it actually makes a lot of sense. It's the strongest truck ever, and it's the strongest shape, and it makes a lot of sense. But then you look at it in real life, and most people might disagree with how it actually came out. So I pulled up the Cybertruck here, and I want to talk a little bit about its overall composition, because it's breaking a lot of design principles, and I think that's part of the reason why people hate it so much. So what stands out to me first when I see this truck is the leading lines. A leading line, for example, is right here and right here. So leading lines are used in photography, they're used in famous pieces of artwork, YouTube thumbnails, advertising. They help point your eyes psychologically to what it's supposed to be looking at. So the leading lines on this image and on the Cybertruck in general kind of point you to right here. This point on the top of the car. If you look at the Cybertruck, you can't really help but look anywhere else but right here at the very tippy top, which is a kind of weird thing to look at. On top of that, most cars and most trucks especially actually have their leading lines kind of focus you down to the bottom, which is supposed to be a psychological trick to make you think of strength and stability, whereas the Cybertruck's almost flipped that, and it's on reverse, where again you're looking at the top of the car, and then if you look at it on an angle, your eyes are just going to look completely off of the car in general, right into the sky or the abyss, or to this tippity top triangle. Another problem, you could say, with this Cybertruck is the symmetry. So perfect symmetry down the middle is typically what people try to go for. So if I draw this line here, like that's kind of right down the middle. So a person with a naturally symmetrical face that's the same on both sides is considered a more attractive person. A car that's symmetrical, like 99% of every other car ever made, is considered beautiful. The Cybertruck is asymmetrical completely. You can see the top of that triangular point that your eyes are looking at is all the way on the left side here, and there is just a huge amount of car over here on this side. Obviously, the point of that is that it's a pickup truck. It's not supposed to be symmetrical because it has a bed, but I think there's an argument that if it were more symmetrical, that may lead to people accepting it a little bit more and considering it not so ugly. I actually did a very janky rendering myself here of if the Cybertruck was symmetrical. So I made this image where that triangle is in the middle, and you can see it's still pretty dystopian and kind of strange looking, but I think it might be a little bit more appealing on your eyes. Just think of it like a Mars rover rather than a consumer vehicle. I put that triangular point right in the middle of the car, and it's perfectly balanced on each side. Overall, on both of these designs, whether it's my symmetrical version or the original Cybertruck, most people feel like the stainless steel feels pretty unfinished, and overall the critiques say that it looks like something my kid drew and I put on the fridge. That's just due to the asymmetry, these leading lines, and the harsh edges without any sort of waves due to that material. In response to this, Tesla's chief designer said, "People will argue this is overly simplistic. I call it undesigned. So clearly they knew right off the bat that it was going to look a little bit like a kid's drawing, and they did it on purpose. Besides the composition, this truck is very military grade. It's very sci-fi, both in the design and in its bulletproof material, which can be a little off-putting to most people who might not be into sci-fi as much as Elon and their team and the average like 20-year-old male like myself. All that being said, for many people, we're starting to hear it's growing on me, and the proof is in the pudding because it's getting sales and people are buying them and you're seeing them on the road. I think after seeing it in real life more and more, the Cybertruck does begin to feel a lot more digestible, and it really does kind of grow on you. So the big question here is, will the Cybertruck change the future of design? Is this gonna stick around? In short, I believe so. First of all, I want to say I really don't have a bias towards the Cybertruck. I think it does look pretty cool, but it's not something I would ever drive. I drive like a small Jeep Wrangler, and it's not really my style, but I don't think it looks ugly like most people say. So this is purely my standpoint as a designer and not a consumer. And what I've seen in the past is I think that the Cybertruck is setting trends kind of like a runway model. You see London Fashion Week, and these runway models don't look like people on the street typically. It's not something people are used to seeing every day, but they're setting the trends here so other people can follow. And later down the road, no pun intended, you'll see things start to shift towards this type of sci-fi dystopian design. For instance, the light bar. Whether or not the Cybertruck coined the light bar or it was the first doesn't really matter, because it's definitely made that headlight on the front of the car become very popular, and the F-150 is using that light bar too. Tesla is paving the way, no pun intended, for design similar to kind of how Apple does. For instance, like Apple released the AirPods and got tons of hate about how ugly they looked. They look like toothbrushes or hair dryers or other things like that. But now if you go on Amazon and you search for wireless earbuds, they all look like AirPods. What I think is that whether or not you personally like the Cybertruck, the next generation of car consumers who are kids right now are growing up on Tesla. Influencers buy Cybertrucks. That's who is buying Cybertrucks right now. It's all over these kids' TikTok feeds today, and the Cybertruck is honestly a celebrity itself on wheels. People will do anything to get a picture with this thing, and it's becoming very iconic, especially to the young generation who are tomorrow's car consumers. I think that car manufacturers like Ford and Mercedes and all the other ones know this, and they're getting a little scared, which is kind of why they're starting to shift their design little by little. The Cybertruck has disrupted the pickup truck industry with its polarizing design. This is the first design change to the pickup truck in over 100 years. And although I don't know if I can say I would buy a Cybertruck, what I do like about it is that it shows one of the largest and most valuable car manufacturers in the world not caring about design, not caring about symmetry or composition or psychological choices of the consumer, just having fun with it and messing around. I think that it's really cool that one of the big car companies is trying something new, whether or not people like it. And this is going to force all the other car companies to innovate as well, which will in turn make cars that other people who don't like the Cybertruck will like. I'm excited for the future of design, and if you want to follow along, click the subscribe button. I'm currently working towards my first 10,000 subscribers, and every click counts. I'll see you next week with my next video.